So to kick off the digestive system, when you guys look, you're going to see a section of your notes that says digestive system. That's where you should be recording as much or as little as you prefer. But again, what we talk about is what you're responsible for in your quiz. So use your notes to your advantage, and you figure out how to word things so that you can remember what it is that we talked about. There's an overall function. We're going to talk about that today. Number of jobs and specific functions we'll get into next week. But then we will also talk about the anatomy involved. Okay, so let's start with that overall function, just the main functions of the digestive system. There's 3 main functions that we're going to reference here in this classroom. Again, we can always get more specific, right? So that's why I have a second spot that says specific function, so we can talk about some of those details there. Overall functions, what are some of the just main functions you think of when you think of the digestive system? We'll start us off. Okay, don't use the word digest in a function for digestive system. What else how could you rephrase that? Process, okay. Lauren? Breakdown, okay. Anything else to add to just that one? Good, so let's say break down food. Now remember, we talked about at the beginning of the year the characteristics of living things and the 4 needs of living things. Anything your body does is really going to tie back to those. Okay, so the 4 needs, not characteristics, we have you need food, you need food is your energy, right?
Nutrients.
Okay. Sort of. You need stable internal conditions, yes. You need food, stable internal conditions. Water. Need water. And living space. So those are the needs, right? And so we've already knocked out a need by saying that your digestive system is going to break down food, right? So need food. We also need water. So your digestive system is going to absorb nutrients. Meaning primarily water. Very important. And then there's one last, super obvious one that your digestive system does. I think it's super obvious, but it maybe is one that we often forget. Joe?
Get rid of bad stuff.
Not bad stuff, necessarily.
Stuff that your body doesn't need.
Not even necessarily things you don't need. So let's be careful in how we phrase this. Molly? The waste, yeah. So it could just be excess. You could just eat more than what you need in that moment, but it doesn't mean that your body doesn't need at least some of it, right? So it's the waste, it's the extra. So whatever's in excess. So when we talk about the anatomy of the digestive system, where does it start? So the first place we're going to have our digestive system start is your mouth. Now when we say mouth, what are we including in that? Important parts of the digestive system, but they'd be kind of lumped into the category of your mouth. Leslie, what do you think? What are some things in your mouth that you need to help break down food? Yep, I would say that that's still in the broad category of your mouth. Okay. Teeth, good. One other piece in your mouth that is really important to help you do that initial breaking down of food. Emmy? That's going to be another primary one, so we'll come back to that one.
Tongue.
Your tongue. So as food enters your mouth, it also is going to come in contact with saliva, which is produced through your salivary glands. So your mouth and salivary glands are going to kick out enzymes. Anyone know what an enzyme is? or what it does. So break. Things. Make that plural. I ran out of room. Down. From our mouth, it's maybe coming in contact with saliva that's produced from our salivary glands. From there, it goes where? Leslie?
Down
Into our esophagus. Good. It's going to travel down into what part, Adam?
Stomach.
Your stomach. Good. And then let's just stick with the main digestive tract right now, because it can go to other places once it gets down here, but the main tract from start to finish, from your stomach to your Jack?
Your small intestine?
Good. Your small intestine. And then where, Hunter?
To the large intestine.
Good. Large intestine. And then it exits your body where? Izzy?
Doesn't it go to the gallbladder first?
We'll talk about those as secondary, but the main track that everything goes through. Anyone know where it exits your body? Last class said the toilet. Thankfully, we live in a society that has toilets, right? But obviously, that's not part of your body. So what's the last part of your body it exits through? Joe?
I'm pretty sure everybody knows, but nobody wants to say it, so.
We're in science.
Your butt.
That is not a science term. Jesse? That's technically just the opening, but it's got to go through something. Lucas? Louder? Yep, your rectum. But one of the things I want to emphasize, because this kind of drives me nuts, there's different names for parts of your large intestine and your small intestine. The rectum is actually part of the large intestine. So I'm not even going to number this one. I'm going to put it as a sub number. Because you will read over and over and over again, the last part of the digestive system is a rectum. But your large intestine has these really funny names that makes up like the first part of it, your duodenum, your jejunum, and then your rectum. Okay, so that tract itself has more specific names. I'm not going to ask you to know those specific names. We'll kind of talk about them, and we might label them on your diagram. But just know that you can get more specific with this stuff, right? We can even get more specific than that. The rectum, though, is part of the large intestine, so that's why I'm going to put it on there as a sub point, because I want to be really clear with you guys that that's not a whole different organ, okay? The large intestine does comprise of your rectum as well, or the other way around. Your rectum is part of the large intestine, right? Going back to what Izzy said, yes, your pancreas, and the other one, what's the last organ we really haven't even said? It's on your diagram. Jack?
Liver?
Yeah, good. And it's going to be one of those things that's going to be really important for you to know. For those different pieces, sorry. So let's start labeling this. This is going to be the last piece of the digestive system I would expect you to review for your quiz on Tuesday. But let's start identifying all of these different pieces, figure out where they're located, I will say that if you look really close, you can see a lot of them. But because the diagram is involving the whole track, it's kind of hard to see them. There is one that's not even depicted on here because of the way the diagram is shown. Keep in mind your body's three-dimensional, right? So some stuff is behind other stuff. And so that's something that's going to be kind of tricky when we look at this stuff and try and figure out what's all involved. But let's start back at the top of the digestive system. And what I want you guys to do at your tables is first discuss this. So where do you think all of this stuff is? Can you identify it? Don't label it till we talk about it as a group, but then we'll go around and you guys can tell me in order where the stuff is on the diagram. Starting with this group over here, what do you guys think? Where does it start? What should we label?
At the top, it'll be the mouth.
Yeah, so right at the top, at the middle there, we should be labeling the mouth. Oh, this group in the middle, what else is at the top there that needs to be labeled?
Salivary gland.
Yeah, so you can see these along the side here, salivary glands at the bottom and on the side here. Those are salivary glands. Okay, next group.
The esophagus.
Good, so it's coming down the esophagus. Esophagus. For those of you who struggle in spelling that. Next group, where do we go? Yeah, it's going to come into the stomach. So the esophagus actually attaches to the stomach, which is off to the right-hand side. A lot of people want to label this other chunk of stuff that's on top here as the stomach, but that's not the stomach. So we have our stomach. From the stomach, it's traveling where? Next group. Good. Now keep in mind the small intestines are in the middle. Okay, so small intestines. From there, it's going where to my last group? Large intestine, right? So this is kind of wrapping out and around the small intestine. And as we said, the last part of the large intestine, where things exit the body, would be called the rectum. But keep in mind that is part of the large intestine. Now, the last parts that are remaining that we talked about, but get really, really confused easily by students, or even just adults, not just students or young people, but adults also. On the top here, we have what? Lauren? Nope. The liver. Yep. Your liver is up at the top. I often see confusion between the stomach and the liver because the liver is a lot larger than most people think. And it does have a really important role. But the liver is really thick, dense tissue. It's not solid, like it's not like this table, but it kind of reminds me similar to a muscle tissue. So if you kind of squeeze maybe the bottom side of your forearm, about the equivalent of that, it's dense, kind of like that. Your stomach, on the other hand, would be similar to like a balloon, right? It's a cavity. And so think about like a water balloon or a deflated balloon. You know, if you press on it, it has a lot of give to it, and you can feel it kind of has an empty feeling to it, okay? Right here underneath your liver to the left of your stomach, so it's really right about here. Bethany?
Is it the gallbladder?
Yep, that's where your gallbladder is located. And another part that we mentioned but is not drawn on here. Anyone know what our last one is, Izzy?
Pancreas?
Where's it at?
No idea.
No clue? Yeah, kind of. Basically, where your stomach attaches to the small intestine, your pancreas would be kind of off to that. So if I were to whip out my awesome drawing skills, it would be relatively right around here. Okay, and I'm just going to throw this label up at the top. You guys fit it in where you can. Pancreas. And the pancreas is actually in some animals rather large, but it's going to tend to lay on the backside of your stomach, okay, or along that part of it. So again, for Tuesday's quiz, the expectation would be that you review the functions, those three main ones, the individual organs involved, and then be able to identify those individual organs on a diagram. Okay?